Good morning, or depending when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always told out of Voice of Radio, and now that Eevee Heroes is, by the time you hear this, it should be out. And we've got 8 EVs and 8 EVVs and 8 Eevee VMAXs, Eeveelutions. I figured we all know I'm going to rank them, right? So rather than fight it, let's rank them. In at number 8, we've got Vaporeon. Now, honestly, my list here, I made it in 1 minute and 10 seconds, including little bullet point notes. It's a very quick list to make. I don't feel great about every spot, but I do feel great about putting Vaporeon at the bottom. And I'm sorry if that sounds mean, but there's nothing about Vaporeon which I really think could be good. It's got an attack for 1 colourless energy that draws 3 cards, which is nice, but it's not the only Pokemon we've ever seen that'll do that. It's got an attack for 3 energy that does 90 damage and switches to the bench, and this I think is the best chance for Vaporeon, because first of all, it's a Rapid Strike Pokemon. You can use Rapid Strike energy, but do remember, we did get a new tool card, or we are getting a new tool card, which can be used for the Gen 1 Eeveelutions at his Elemental Badge, which will reduce this down to a 2 water energy attack. So now you can hit and run doing 90 damage for a Rapid Strike energy and a tool. I still think it's too awkward, and I don't think it's going to end up being good enough, and I do think it's not enough to really hang our hat on. However, I think this represents our best chance of seeing success with Vaporeon. The VMAX does let you cheat evolution, lets you put a Pokemon from your discard pile onto your bench and attach 3 water energy to it. But then I'm getting a VMAX out just to get a better Pokemon out. I'm not loving that. And for 3 energy, and again, we can do this for a Rapid Strike energy and a tool, you can do 200 damage if your opponent's active already has any damage counters on it. But Victini VMAX can do 220 against a Pokemon V or VMAX for just 2 energy with no other caveats. So I'm sorry, I don't think Vaporeon is absolute trash garbage. I think the hit and run attack is interesting. I love the cheating evolution, but I do feel confident putting it in at number 8. In at number 7, we've got Flareon, and to be blunt, I want to be wrong about Flareon. I desperately want to be wrong about Flareon. Now, the Pokemon V, there's nothing I really like about it. The first attack for a colourless energy that does 20 and attaches to it from your deck is fine. But remember, anytime you're attaching to the active Pokemon using an attack, you're basically using the attack to accelerate energy and then sitting in the active, letting your opponent have a free hit. That is not generally something I like to do. But the VMAX is very interesting. For 3 energy, and you are a single strike Pokemon, so feel free to use Houndoom to accelerate energy. By the time we get this, you're not really going to have Welder, unfortunately. Welder would make it cool as well. What you do is you discard the top 5 cards of your deck, and you deal 100 damage for each energy you end up discarding when you're discarding the top 5 cards of your deck. But you can use things like Oranguru to fix the top card of your deck, which is cool. And you can use things like Energy Recycler, which is back now, to just stuff your deck full of energy. And I do think there is a fun, really high power, high damage rogue deck to be made with Flareon V, but I do worry, like a bunch of decks in the past that have had this same kind of mechanic, I fear it's going to be just a little bit gimmicky for my liking. In at number 6, we've got Leafeon. And for me, the love for Leafeon, the success of Leafeon, if you will, hinges on the ability on the V. Because the ability on the V says that once during your turn, you may search your deck for a grass energy, attach it to one of your Pokemon, and your turn ends. And okay, fine, ending your turn isn't phenomenal, but turn 1 when you can't attack anyway? Even mid-game, if you're in a situation where you're struggling for energy and you've just got nothing to do, this will help you out of a hole. And you are attaching from your deck, so early game you don't need to get it in your hand or get it in a discard or any of that rubbish. I really do think this could be a great ability that can help out not just grass decks, but any deck that uses colourless energy. The VMAX, I mean, for 2 energy, you do 60 damage for each energy in your opponent's active Pokemon's retreat cost. And as much as that's fine, it's too easily played around. There is a rogue deck to be made here using cards like Gala Mine to increase retreat cost. Absol is going to be rotating out about the time this is legal for play over here. And maybe we get other cards that end up increasing retreat cost, and that makes Leafeon a whole bunch better. But when I look at Leafeon, I see it as the ability on the V rather than anything else. Now, in at number 5, we've got Glaceon, and this is one of the ones where I might be wrong. You see, Glaceon V doesn't have much going for it, except the first attack does let you search your deck for a card that evolves from this Pokemon and evolve it. Basically, for a single energy, you evolve up into the VMAX. And generally speaking, this is kind of cool, but it also leaves you there to take a free hit. Except that when we get to the VMAX, you prevent all damage done to this Pokemon by attacks from your opponent's Pokemon VMAX. It's Zamazenta's ability, although incidentally it does not protect you from other Glaceon. Okay, and Zamazenta's been alright, but we all know there are ways around Zamazenta. I mean, we've now got the supporter card Phoebe, which will just flat out let your VMAXs go through any effects, including something like this. But having said that, even with Phoebe legal, we've seen a resurgence in Decidueye lately, and we are assuming that you can find Phoebe every turn you need it, and you can keep recovering it and then finding it again. Having 1 or 2 copies of Phoebe in your deck is not the all-out counter to Glaceon that some people might think. Having said that, I still don't know if it's going to block enough decks, and there are ways around it. And then we've got free energy, 150 plus 30 to one of your opponent's bench. It's fine, but it's not a good attack. It's alright. And I do think there are going to be games won by this ability. Incidentally, this is what makes the Ascension so good, because you can essentially ascend, and then you are blocking straight away. So by the time your opponent they go first, you go second, ascend. So by the time your opponent is able to VMAX, you're already blocking. So this is okay, and I do like the ability. This is one of the ones, it goes in the middle of the list because I really do think this could go either way. Now, I do think there is a little bit of a gap here between the top 4 and the bottom 4. I do feel good about that part of my list. And in at number 4, we've got Espeon, and it is basically the ability of the VMAX. Now, Espeon V in and of itself, I mean, the best thing about it is 1 energy and it does 60 damage to a Pokemon V. It's fine. It's fine in the early game. And there was a while ago, we had a Duskmane Necrozma that did a very similar thing. Actually came out as 2 different promo cards with different artwork, which is cool. And that did it to a GX or an EX and did see a bunch of play. So early game, just to hit some Pokemon and get them into range, I could see this being cool. But really, it's all about the ability here, which is the same as the ability on the one from Dark Explorers. It prevents all effects of your opponent's attacks other than damage done to any of your Pokemon with energy attached to them. So, essentially here, any energy denial, damage counters, special conditions, automatic KOs, any of these kind of things that your opponent may be seeking to rely on, don't work. And that's what I really like about this. When this came around in Dark Explorers, it was a good card, and I've told the story a couple times recently how I didn't put this in my Worlds deck 2012 and took 2 losses to paralysis decks and damage counter decks. That was on me. That was silly. And I'm sorry. The damage counters are really from an ability, so it wouldn't have stopped them. But the point is, it would have stopped the paralysis, and then I would have won both those games. Because Stefan Tobacco played pretty much the same deck with a 1-1 Espeon line, and didn't have the problems I had with those decks. It's sad. We move on with our lives. Point is, great ability, and I do think it's going to see a bunch of play. In at number 3, we've got Sylveon. And I'm going to be honest with you, I think Sylveon V's ability is proper job over the top ridiculous good. The ability says that once during your turn you may search your deck for an item card, put it into your hand, and your turn ends. The thing is, it's an item card, and an item card could be anything. It could even be an item card. And this is awesome. It means that you can go and grab a quick ball, and then next turn you're going to have a Crobat, and you can start rolling again. And look, obviously you do not want to end your turn searching for a quick ball to get a Crobat next turn. But tell me now, have a think, right? How many games of the Pokemon TCG have you played where you had to pass the turn because you had nothing? You just had absolutely nothing that you could do. Probably a few, right? Probably hundreds if you played as many as I have. Every single time you have to pass the turn because you don't have the requisite energy or you don't have the switching card that you need or whatever. No, that's a lie. 95% of the time or more, Sylveon V would get you out of it. Yes, we've also got that thing whereby turn 1, if you go first, you can't attack anyway, so you might as well. But Sylveon, for me, is perfect in those situations where you have to pass a turn because you're stuck in the active, don't have the energy, whatever, and we all have those turns on a regular basis, to the point where I could easily see Sylveon actually deserving of a higher place on the list. Now, as for the VMAX, I do kind of like the VMAX, because for free energy, you do 70 damage, plus 30 more for each type of Pokemon on your bench. And there is a ridiculous combo to be made with the upcoming Kecleon that is the same type as any basic energy attached to it. You can, as I detailed in the Sylveon video, I'll link all the videos in the description where I go through these cards in a lot more detail. I could do that in this video, but we would be talking probably a couple of hours, and it would be largely repetitious. This is all about really looking at them, comparing them to each other, and reminding you about the best things about them, while we look to see which is the best. Basically, with Sylveon here, you can get a one-hit KO on VMAXs, but it's super awkward to do so. I'm not saying I hate the VMAX, it's also incidentally got the same ability as Stonejourner, or the same attack, except it's worse, because Stonejourner will attach to any Pokemon and heal 120, whereas Sylveon will only attach to the bench and heal 120, which is not quite the same. I don't love the VMAX, but I do think the ability on the V is absolutely stunning and all but guaranteed to see a huge amount of play. Now, in at number 2, I am putting Jolteon, and this kind of makes me happy. Because when I saw Jolteon V, I was, to be blunt, not exactly complimentary, I think is a nice way to put it. I did not say nice things about Jolteon V, but in my defense, Jolteon V didn't really deserve to have nice things said about it. You know, 4 energy, flip 4 coins, 60 for each head, that isn't good. 1 energy, 20 damage to one of your opponent's Pokemon, bearing in mind that, you know, Espeon can do 60, okay, only to a V, but still, I did not like Jolteon V. And then I saw Jolteon VMAX, and I thought, well, that's alright. 2 energy, 100 to the active, and 100 to a bench Pokemon with any damage counters on it. And then I saw that elemental badge that turned it into a single energy attack, and overnight Jolteon for me went from, man, I'm disappointed, to, that looks tasty, to, oh my goodness, that might be broken. Because now, for 1 energy and a tool, you do 100 to the active and 100 to a bench Pokemon with any damage. So clearly here, Galarian, Zigzagoon, and Scoop Up Net become your new best friends, and you are easily taking out your opponent's bench support Pokemon, because you just drop a damage with Galarian, Zigzagoon, and attack, while hitting into the active for decent damage as well, and you've got free retreat, and with a single energy attack, you are a prime candidate to be using Cheryl to be healing up. I think Jolteon has a legitimate chance to be borderline broken. I really do think Jolteon here, I don't think Jolteon is good, I think Jolteon is great. I still don't like the V, but oh my goodness, the VMAX seems amazing. And that means by process of elimination, number 1 has to be Umbreon. And look, I've made no secret of the fact that I'm an Umbreon fanboy and Umbreon is my favourite Eeveelution. Even though I did say in a video the other day there was no Darkness type Eeveelution. One of the more embarrassing statements on my videos. Having said that, I have made a lot of Pokemon videos. Every so often, I am going to misspeak and I am going to say something embarrassing. It's inevitable. I'm sorry, that was one of the dumber things I've said. Now, Umbreon is alright. 1 energy, 30 damage, stop them retreating is kind of cool. It's not an attack for which you play a Pokemon, but as a handy bonus, it's a handy bonus. And then for 3 energy, if this Pokemon has any damage counters on it, you do 80 more. But you are a single strike Pokemon, so you are going to be using Houndoom to accelerate single strike energy and taking damage in the meantime, which means you are going to very easily be KOing a Shadow Calyrex VMAX, which I think is going to be one of the very best Pokemon in the game moving forward. Also, by the time you've used Houndoom twice, not only do you have enough energy and damage on you, but you're not actually hitting 160, you're hitting 200, and that's before you bring in other single strike tricks. I think Umbreon V, I loved Umbreon V. We saw this a week or two before we saw the VMAX, and I liked Umbreon V when I saw it. But the VMAX has Lycanroc's old ability. And honestly here, as much as I love some of the others, I think Sylveon's ability is nuts. I think Jolteon could be a redonkulous attacker. But unless everything else about Umbreon was trash, it's not. And seriously, being a single strike Pokemon is great. As far as I'm concerned, giving it this ability puts it at number 1. And I've seen a weirdly large amount of people who have looked at this and gone, excuse me, Wassy, we've got boss's orders. We don't need this. And anyone that tells me we don't need this ability because we've got boss's orders is really telling me, hi, Wassy, I'm a newer player. I wasn't actually playing when Sun and Moon was out. Because if you were playing when Sun and Moon was out, you will have noticed that we had Guzma, and yet Lycanroc wasn't one of the best decks. It was several of the best decks. Lycanroc Buzzwole was a top deck. Lycanroc Zoroark, for a while, was arguably the top deck. And it just got randomly teched into other decks as well. Because there are a million reasons to play this even with boss's orders. Pokemon are easier to search than supporters. You can play this on the same turn as another supporter. You can play a supporter card like boss's orders to search for this and then get gusting. Because we've all had those turns where we needed boss's orders, didn't have it, so we had to play Professor's Research, and lo and behold, we drew into it. Well, good news, with here you've got it. There are other reasons, that's just a couple of them. But seriously, the whole we've got boss's orders is in no way, shape or form even remotely a slightly good argument for downgrading Umbreon VMAX. I expect Umbreon VMAX to be in a bunch of decks. It is a good Pokemon and a good attacker in its own right. And then you add on the VMAX with the ability to gust when you evolve it, and it is just ridiculous. So there we go, ladies and gentlemen. All 8 of the Eevees paired with their VMAXs and ranked. The more I think about it, the more I do actually quite like my list. There is plenty of room for argument, but I've been talking here for the last nearly 20 minutes, and I'm still looking at my list. I wouldn't change a card even after going through and explaining my reasoning. But you know what would be fun? If you guys gave me a full 1 to 8 ranking in the comment section. Go nuts! Be nice. Also, remember my rule here, right? If you're going to drop a Pokemon, you have to raise one. If you raise one, you have to drop one. You can't just say Flareon should be higher. You need to tell me who you're going to drop to make Flareon higher. Go nuts in the comment section, but be nice. And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at TheWassy, and Twitch for some live action at twitch.tv/PTCG Radio. If you want to support the channel, get some bonus podcasts and all that good stuff, head on over to patreon.com/PTCG Radio, where you can do exactly that. But by far the most important thing as always, look after yourselves till next time, would ya? Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.